Hey guys, my name is Ferguson, and this channel is all about helping you guys reach your tricking goals. I may not be the best tricker, but hopefully my experience can help you guys become the best. Welcome to Beginner Week, video number 1. If you clicked on this video, then you want to know what tricking is. Well, it's this. Enough said, right? No, not enough said? Oh, you want me to explain what tricking is? Okay, I got you. So tricking is short for martial arts tricking because of its origin. Most of the movements in tricking that you'll see have been around since time immemorial, since humans have been around and been able to move their bodies. But there are a lot of modern tricks that are unique to just tricking that aren't going to be seen in any other arts. The common definition for tricking you'll see is it is an aesthetic martial art that blends elements from tumbling, martial arts, and breakdancing. And the goal is to create combos that are pleasing to the eye or the performer, pretty much just to have fun and to express themselves creatively and physically in an art form that isn't something like dance or breakdance or something. The way I like to think of it is tricking is an art that can be performed as a sport. Define an art.
There are two words spelled like art. Art means the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power.
Define sport.
Sport means an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment.
There you go. Thanks, Siri.
Sure thing.
While parkour is basically the French martial art of running away, you can think of tricking as the multicultural martial art of fighting invisible ninjas. And eventually you will figure out for yourself what the hardest part about tricking is. So now I'm going to go into a brief history of tricking so that you can kind of get a full picture or understanding of what modern tricking is. So this is going to be voiceover rather than me standing here talking to you. So, tricking's origins are rooted in sport, karate, and taekwondo extreme forms. Martial artists would compete in tournaments doing poomsae or doing kata. You were allowed and encouraged to do flashy, not traditional kicks and acrobatic movements and flips, which meant that they would blend elements from wushu, capoeira, gymnastics, and other art forms in their forms. Then, regardless of winners or losers, at these competitions, they would all meet up after the matches to try and one-up each other or show off their new tricks that they learned since the last time they met up. Because this was in the late 80s and early 90s that this was happening, so there wasn't even really solid internet. But because of this, it created a really tight-knit community around this portion of the tournaments, and it began to form into its own art called martial arts tricking. At this point, It started to move outside of just tournaments because people would train tricking at gymnastics gyms and other places, and others would see them and want to try it. Then, whole communities of tricksters, or the modern, more accepted term now, trickers, who never even went to a tournament, formed through these sessions at open gyms. These communities would hang out all the time and form teams that were just for fun and to try and push each other further and, get better combos or better tricks. And then these communities started making samplers for their own tricks of like what they could do or what they did this year, or for their teams to try and hype themselves up and, show what they could do as a group. These samplers consisted of combos and really big tricks or creative expression or whatever they kind of wanted to make their video. Because this was happening in the very early days of the internet, there wasn't even YouTube yet. So they would be hosted on sites like belong.com and yellowboy.com. And because it was expensive to host videos and websites at the time, you had to submit and be added to the site, and it was a huge honor if you were added. When YouTube popped up, so did two websites that were hugely influential to me, Trickstutorials.com and Club540.com. Club540 had a Tricktionary, or a list of tricks with GIF examples of the tricks broken up into perceived levels that helped trickers progress. It had a forum, but it wasn't really where most of the community hung out. There was even a location-based thing where you could post that you go to this open gym and then someone else could see that and then you guys could meet up. It was really ahead of its time. I loved Club 540, but the main community existed on a different website, and that website was Trickstutorials.com, and it was led by the legendary Jujimufu. And it was where the majority of the online tricking community existed at the time. It was a forum site where people could post their footage, their samplers, ask for tips, and just hang out and talk to each other and form a community, especially if they were disconnected from anyone else. It was like everyone was part of this secret club, and it was very underground, and you got to talk and share with people who shared your same interests through this site. Juji also posted a lot of tutorials on YouTube, which is where I saw him first. This new online presence of tricking led to the rise of the backyard tricker. And this is where I came in. I was just a poor boy down in Florida, where the catchphrase is that it's a small drinking village with a fishing problem. So the things to do in that town were to go to the beach and go to the movies, and there wasn't much else to do. I wasn't really into drugs or alcohol, so I wanted to find a different physical outlet to keep myself entertained. I started doing parkour with my twin brother Alex, and we were having a really good time. But all the best things to climb on or jump on in this small town were downtown, and the downtown district is the historical district. So anything we touched pretty much was seen as an act of vandalism by the cops, and we got bothered all the time and put in handcuffs all the time, and were accused of vandalism, and we kind of just got sick of it. So we looked for an outlet that we could just kind of do on grass by itself, and that's kind of how we found tricking, through looking up tutorials like how to backflip. So I joined Club 540 and I joined Trickstutorials, and my eyes were open to a whole new world. There were so many good trickers on this site, and the community itself was so helpful and so welcoming, especially to beginners. It was a community where you could watch a sampler of your favorite tricker and then go talk to them on a forum and get advice directly from them, which is just ridiculous. Think about that happening with like your favorite, pro basketball player. Oh, let's just go hit up LeBron on social media and see if he's going to reply to me really quick. This is where a lot of your favorite trickers and creators like Kojo and Kyle Skelly and Ahmed started in the beginning. They started on places like Trickstutorials. And there are just so many other trickers to mention that were hugely influential on the community. There's Scott Skelton and Phil Gibbs and Nick Vale and Anish Sherfa and Jeremy Marinas and Daniel Graham and Dan Pitlock and Towels. Who's Towels? You'll find out eventually. And Velu and Michael Guthrie and Alex D and Seshomaru and JL Jefferson Lewis and Gabby and Javier Macias and Micah Carnes and Kyle McLean and countless other trickers that were hugely inspirational to me and trickers that I still watch to this day. With the rise of so many new tricking groups and this new online presence that everyone had, it allowed everyone to connect, and these tricking groups would get together at a specific location at a specific time and throw not necessarily an event like it is today, but what were called gatherings. At these gatherings, you would just hang out with all these people that you always talk to online, and you would trick well into the night and just hang out with these people that you get to talk to all the time, but you never got to see. Trickers would challenge each other to battles where one person would do a combo or a trick, and then the other person would try to do it better or do a better version of it or do a completely different combo that they thought was better, and they would go back and forth, and at the end, a judge or the applause of a crowd would determine who the winner was. It was very similar to breakdancing battles. What was important with these battles is that you would go as hard as possible and take it as serious as possible while you were doing the battle, but as soon as it was over, it's all love, and you would hug and you would hang out for the rest of the night. The goal was to push each other and try to make each other better at tricking, not to hate on each other. Battles have evolved now, and there are so many different kinds of battles and formats for battles nowadays. But gatherings weren't just about tricks and definitely weren't just about battles. It was mainly a chance to broaden your horizons, see a new place, meet trickers that you idolized or trickers that you would trade clips with online, and you finally got to meet them in person. There would be excursions where the whole group would go out to a bar, or they would go hiking in a place that the locals knew that was like a secret spot or a landmark or something like that. Gatherings could be as small as 6 or 7 guys just getting together from different places and meeting each other and hanging out and eating good food and tricking together and just training to have a good time. Or it could be this enormous event like Loopkicks, and trickers from all over the world would go and compete in the battles or train together, and the crowds would be immense just to see the amount of trickers. It was hugely inspirational to a kid like me, seeing all these amazing people who could do these amazing flips and kicks and twists, and it was an example of what I could be if I trained really hard, and what I could experience if I chose to put myself out there and go to these places. There are many large gatherings nowadays, and I've even hosted my own, but there are still small gatherings happening. Not so many currently, just because we're still in a pandemic, but as of 2019. But regardless of the size of the gathering, this is where the tricking community exists. It is the most welcoming atmosphere. It's so intimidating to go out on the floor, but it doesn't matter if you're doing a hook to B kick. As long as you're trying your best, everyone's going to clap for you and everyone's going to encourage you to keep training. It doesn't matter your skill level, you need to go to a gathering. But this golden era of tricking couldn't last for long, because the Fire Nation was, it's not that. Because Juji couldn't afford to host the site anymore because it was getting too big. So we all rallied together and we helped fund the site for a couple months, and then he kind of threw in the towel because it was still not covering it, and he had to close Trickstutorials.com. When that happened, a bunch of other websites popped up, but there was one specifically called Trick Session that was my favorite. It was very helpful and was basically a replacement to TT, and it was wonderful for the time, but again, that also shut down after maybe a year or two, I think it was, and that was kind of the last bastion forum. After that, the tricking community moved on to Facebook and Instagram once Instagram popped up, and Facebook is kind of a very pale substitute to Trickstutorials. The forum was a much preferred method in my opinion, and Instagram, because of the shorter clips that you could upload and just get attention on your one trick that you did, or get attention from the layman person who isn't just a tricker, it kind of killed sampler culture. People used to save their clips for like a whole year, and they put it together in this grand thing, and it was amazing. And most trickers that were around at that time really missed that. It's very nostalgic for us to see samplers. So make some samplers. So now the tricking community is bigger than ever, but there isn't really a place like Trickstutorials other than Facebook and the Facebook group, but there's a lot of toxicity in there. And then there's Instagram, where people just DM each other or talk in the comments, but everything's kind of hollow or shallow, I guess I could say, from my perspective. But that didn't kill tricking, because like I was saying, it's bigger than ever. And now there are tons of new trickers who are just blowing everyone's mind. You know, quad full is kind of a commonplace thing now. It's like, oh, that's the achievement. But when I started, it was like, get your double full. Wow, you're a god. So it's a very different shift for me. And now there are tons of new trickers and tons of new tricks that are being landed that are just like, were utter myths back in my day. Back in my day. But it's amazing to see, and instead of being a disgruntled old man, I tried to keep up as best I can and create a community of my own to help you guys learn how to get as good as these guys that you are seeing on Instagram, because it is a daunting task. It's like, you know, playing the very first Assassin's Creed and being like, oh, this is a cool open world, and now you go to any open world game now and it's just almost daunting the amount of tasks or goals that you have. You have so many tricks that you can learn, and you don't necessarily know where to start as a beginner. There's not many good guides, but you can go to Learn Tricking on Instagram, or you can look up Mastering Tricking on YouTube. I'm sure you've already seen him if you're watching me. Or you can watch the next couple of videos in this series, and hopefully you will be filled in as best as I can. So like I was saying, that is like the cliff notes or a very, very brief history of tricking. It's more about the community and, you know, where we are now, rather than necessarily the tricks themselves. It started in sports karate, it became its own thing, people started learning quirks and different variations of things and just becoming acromancers or wizards of acrobatics, and we became a large online family because of it, and that's why the tricking community largely is still so welcoming to this day, even though there is still toxicity online. So I'd encourage you to be as nice as you can to each other and really help other people if they need help. There's no reason to be mean to each other, and it's only going to alienate the community and make people think that trickers are just a bunch of a-holes and discourage new people from learning. If you'd like to see more tricking compilations of what tricking is, I'd recommend the videos that I have linked in the description. They are so good, and I didn't want to make my own version of this necessarily, other than what I did at the beginning, kind of pseudo version of that, because they've already done it so perfectly that I think that you should just watch those videos. So I hope you enjoyed this brief explanation of what tricking is and a brief history of the tricking community. So I hope that gave you a good perspective on what tricking is, and I hope that you kind of feel a little more connected to the community now, knowing all of these things. You can also be one of us. You can join us, you can trick with us, you can come to gatherings and be a part of this community. But I hope that helped you understand more about tricking, and if you enjoyed this, please leave a like on the video and please leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought about this, or if there's something in this that you didn't know before. And we just passed around 530 subs, so if you'd like to be part of this community and you're not part of it yet, please subscribe down below so that you can help me on my quest to 1,000 subs. But until next time, please stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys later.